Messi is in yet another World Cup final. This is his third final in 12 years. And the question on everybody's lips right now is, how did Argentina pull off a comeback to beat England with just 5 minutes of normal time left? In case you didn't catch the game, Thomas Tuchel lined England up in a 4-2-3-1, while Argentina stuck with their usual 4-4-2. When England had the ball, they looked to split their backline, James, Gehi, Stones, and Spence, wide and high, almost forming a back five with Rice or Anderson dropping in between them when needed. What this does is give England multiple passing options at every stage of build-up. It's a simple numbers game. Stretch the pitch horizontally, and you force the opposition into a choice they can't win. If Argentina tried to press man-to-man against that shape, their own structure would get pulled out wide and thin through the middle. And with Jude Bellingham or Harry Kane regularly dropping off the front line into pockets of midfield space, Argentina risked being overrun and outnumbered 2 versus 3 right through the center of the pitch. The exact area you can't afford to lose control of against a team with Bellingham's range of passing. And if Argentina backed off and didn't press man-to-man at all, England had an even simpler route. Work the ball down the channels through their now freed wide areas, patiently, phase by phase, until a gap opened. That's the trap built into Tuchel's structure. Press us, and we'll beat you through the middle. Don't press us, and we'll walk it down the wings. Argentina needed an answer that did neither. To counter this, Argentina pressed England in their own familiar 4-4-2 shape, with Alvarez and Messi forming the first line of defense. But here's the key detail. Instead of aggressively chasing down England's back four man for man, Alvarez and Messi weren't primarily concerned with the ball-carrying defender at all. Their real job was to cut off the passing lanes into Declan Rice and Anderson, England's double pivot. Take away that first pass, and you take away England's ability to breathe through the middle. Behind them, McAllister and Paredes sat just off that front press, screening Rice and Anderson from a second angle, while also blocking off passing lanes into Bellingham. The layered logic here is what made it effective. Even if Messi or Alvarez's press got beaten with one clever pass, Rice and Anderson still wouldn't have time on the ball, because the second line was already waiting to close them down instantly. It's a press built in depth, not a single line of pressure. Beat the first man, and you just run into the second. Enzo Fernandez was given a slightly different job entirely: track James. But again, not by pressing him directly and chasing him around the pitch. Enzo's starting position looked to block the passing lane into the half space, and he'd only break out and sprint toward James the moment the ball actually reached him. The logic was simple and disciplined. If Enzo had drifted out wide early to press James, he'd have opened up exactly the kind of central pocket that Gehi and Stones, both genuinely composed passers, could exploit with a line-breaking ball into Bellingham or Rodgers between the lines. By holding his position and only committing late, Enzo denied that pass without gambling the space behind him. Every defensive plan has a pressure point, and England found theirs. To build from the back, one of Pickford, Rice, or Anderson would consistently drop into the back line, stretching it even wider still and freeing the fullbacks to push right up alongside the front line. And with Kane regularly dropping deep to receive, not to score but to combine, he dragged his marker up the pitch with him wherever he went. You can see it clearly here. Kane drops off, Martinez follows him out of the back line rather than letting him go, and that single decision opens a hole in behind for Rodgers to exploit. The moment Rodgers goes unmarked, he receives possession and space with time to pick his pass. And it's that pocket of space, created purely by one center back's marking decision, that leads directly to the long ball forward, and eventually, England's opening goal. Whenever England did bypass Argentina's press, their release valve was always the same: go wide. They pushed their fullbacks extremely high up the pitch, which meant Argentina's own fullbacks were now regularly facing 1v2 situations out on the flank, one defender against a winger and an overlapping fullback, with no cover arriving in time. Just look at James's heat map from the game. He spent the majority of his time in the final third, playing high and tight to the touchline, building a near-constant combination with Rodgers down England's right flank. That partnership alone was responsible for a disproportionate share of England's crosses into the box. Here's a clear example of that 2 versus 1 in motion. Rodgers picks the ball up isolated against Nicolas Tagliafico. Rather than trying to beat his man alone, James times an overlapping run from deep, spotted immediately by Rodgers, who slides the pass into his path, and James arrives to whip in a dangerous low cross that Martinez does brilliantly to keep out. Now let's flip it and look at how England defended when Argentina had their own goal kicks. England pressed aggressively here too, and the shape behind that press was smart. Kane's job was to drop onto Argentina's deepest pivot, usually Paredes, while Rodgers and Gordon pressed from out to in, pushing Argentina's center backs infield and keeping England man-to-man across that higher zone. The obvious risk with a press like this is the chip into the wide areas, but James played a hybrid role down the right, and Bellingham did the same down the left, both able to push wide with confidence because Kane was effectively playing as an auxiliary midfielder. That gave England the spare man they needed to cover those flanks without breaking shape. Enzo dropped in alongside Paredes to help under that pressure, and early on, Rice could track him easily enough. But once Tagliafico started pushing high as a left back, it freed Alvarez to drift infield, meaning either he or Messi could now drop between the lines, and Rice was suddenly caught in two minds: stick with Enzo or step to whoever was dropping short. That hesitation is exactly the kind of gap Argentina needed, and it let them start progressing the ball further up the pitch, even if it meant taking risks, bouncing tight passes into a pressured Paredes just to draw England in and spring a center back into space on the next ball. Once Argentina escaped that first press, England dropped into more of a narrow 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 mid-block, with the clear priority of showing Argentina down the flanks. With Tagliafico and Molina providing almost all of Argentina's width, there was barely any wide threat to speak of, so England were happy to concede the wings and keep everything congested through the middle. It worked. As the first half wore on, Messi kept dropping deeper and deeper just to get on the ball, often collecting it in his own half. Here's the moment the match actually turns. Not a substitution, not a tactical masterstroke mid-play, but England's own goal. Once England went 1-0 up, two things changed almost immediately, and both worked against them. First, England stopped alternating between the high press and the mid-block, and dropped almost entirely into a low block instead. That made it easy for Argentina to progress the ball all the way into midfield, and even the final third with very little resistance. Argentina, in turn, got bold with their own shape. Only Paredes stayed back, while McAllister and Fernandez pushed on to flood the box alongside the front two, with the fullbacks providing width to cross from. But the real damage was more subtle. With England sitting so deep, it opened up vertical space for Messi to drop into. Earlier in the game, Messi dropping deep meant dropping into his own half, miles from goal, low threat. Now, dropping deep against a low block still left him in zone 14, right on the edge of the box, with time, space, runners ahead of him, and a genuine goal threat every time he touched it. The same movement that used to neutralize him was now feeding him the ball in the most dangerous area on the pitch. The second change was Tuchel shifting to a 5-3-2, likely trying to give England more bodies to deal with Argentina flooding the box. But that fix created a new problem. With only three midfielders now, there were huge horizontal gaps outside the wide two. And that's exactly the space Messi started drifting into consistently, picking up the ball in dangerous zones with time to either combine in 1-2s or swing crosses into the box himself. Other Argentina players thrived in that same pocket too. With so much room out there, they had time to line up cross after cross into a box England had effectively handed over. Tuchel tried one more adjustment, switching to a 5-4-1 to add horizontal cover across that second line. But by then, it was too late. Argentina had already found their rhythm, and the goals came from a set piece and a moment of pure Messi quality, completing the comeback. 2 goals in 6 minutes to turn the game on its head. So in the end, this wasn't really about Argentina finding some hidden tactical trick in the second half. It was Tuchel's own adjustments, made to protect a lead, that ended up handing Messi and Argentina exactly the space they needed. Argentina are now on the verge of back-to-back World Cup titles. Argentina versus Spain for the biggest prize in world football. Who takes it home? Drop your prediction in the comments.